Imagine standing on the corner of Broadway and Canal Street in New York City. The date is July 14th, 1850. But before you can look around, your body reacts. Your throat constricts, violently rejecting the air. It's not just a smell. It is a physical assault. A thick, invisible wall of ammonia strikes your olfactory bulb with such intensity that your eyes water instantly. You are breathing in the vaporized waste of 150,000 horses baking under a relentless 90-degree sun. You attempt to take step, but your leather boot sinks 2 inches into a warm, viscous slurry. This isn't mud. It is a toxic paste of manure, rotting vegetable matter, and stagnant alley water that hasn't drained in weeks. You pull your foot free with a wet sucking sound, the sludge coating your ankle. Panic rises in your chest because you know the rule of this world: do not fall. In 1850, a scrape on your palm from a cobblestone coated in this filth isn't a minor injury. It is a lottery ticket for tetanus, gangrene, or blood poisoning. A slip on the street today could mean a slow, agonizing death by fever. Next week, as you stabilize yourself, a low, guttural grunt vibrates through the humid air behind you. You spin around. It's not a dog. It's a hogga. 300-pound feral pig, razor-backed and covered in mange. It's not alone. Thousands of these beasts roam Manhattan freely, serving as the city's only sanitation department. They tear through piles of refuse on the sidewalk, snapping their jaws at pedestrians who get too close. You freeze, locking eyes with the animal, your heart hammering against your ribs. This is the first lesson of the real old America. Nature hasn't been conquered. It is hunting you. To understand the daily grind of your ancestors, you must strip away the marble statues and the romanticized paintings of the frontier. You have to inhabit their skin, which was almost perpetually covered in a film of grime. In 1850, the concept of being clean was a luxury reserved for the top 1%. For everyone else, the battle against dirt was a losing war. If you leave the chaos of New York and transport yourself to a homestead in rural Ohio, the enemy changes, but the threat remains. Here, the antagonist, is the mud. Without asphalt or gravel, the spring thaw transforms the entire landscape into a glue. Imagine trying to walk to your neighbor's house just 2 miles away. The clay soil grabs your boots with the grip of a vice. Every step requires a deliberate, muscular engagement of your quadriceps and calves. You aren't walking, you are wading. Wagons don't roll, they plow. You hear the sickening crack of oak wood as an axle snaps under the suction of the road. You are isolated, cut off from the world by the very earth you stand on. The silence of the plains isn't peaceful. It's heavy. It presses against your ears, broken only by the relentless whine of mosquitoes, clouds of them, unblocked by window screens, feasting on your neck and arms until your skin is a topography of red, itching welts. Now, let's retreat to the supposed safety of the home. You push open the heavy wooden door of a tenement apartment in the Five Points district. The air inside is arguably worse than the street. It is stagnant, recycled breath shared by 8 people living in a room the size of a modern parking space. Your eyes adjust to the gloom. There is no ventilation. The only window is nailed shut to keep out the miasma of the streets. You watch as a father, let's call him Jacob, collapses onto a chair. He doesn't wash his hands. There is no sink, no faucet, no running water. To wash would require hauling a bucket down for flights of narrow, rickety stairs, pumping water from a backyard well that sits exactly 6 feet from the overflowing privy and hauling it back up. He is too exhausted. So he wipes his grease-stained hands on his wool trousers and reaches for a piece of bread. the grime of the factory floor, the bacteria of the street. It all goes into his mouth. Night falls, and the room plunges into a darkness so absolute it feels suffocating. Candles are expensive. Whale oil is for the wealthy. The family moves by memory, navigating the cramped space like blind navigators. It's time to sleep. But rest is a battle. The bed frame is a simple wooden box, strung with a grid of thick hemp ropes. On top lies a sack stuffed with corn husks or straw. As you lie down, the ropes groan and stretch. If they aren't tightened with a wooden key literally sleeping tight, you sag into the middle, folding into a taco shape, smashing against your siblings or spouse. But the discomfort of the mattress is nothing compared to what is waiting inside it. You feel the first prick on your calf, then another on your shoulder. Bedbugs. They are not a sign of a dirty home. They are a universal plague. Rich or poor, in a mansion or a shack, the scent of crushed bedbugs a sickly sweet, musty odor like rotting raspberries is the perfume of the American night. You scratch until your skin bleeds, but exhaustion eventually wins. You drift off, your body twitching involuntarily as the parasites feed, knowing that in just 4 hours the sun will rise, and the brutal cycle of survival will begin again. This lack of sanitation wasn't just uncomfortable, it was lethal. But it was only the backdrop for the real struggle, because once the sun rose, the real torture began. The human body was about to be pushed past its breaking point in a way that modern exercise physiology would deem dangerous. You are about to enter the workforce of 1850. The sun hasn't even breached the horizon in rural Kentucky, but the day has already begun. You are not waking up to the smell of coffee. You are waking up to the ache in your lower back that never truly went away. In 1850, the human body is not a temple. It is a tool, a biological machine driven until the gears grind to a halt. Picture a farmer named Elias. He's 35. But if you saw him today, you would guess he is 50. His knuckles are swollen, twice the size of a modern man's, permanently calcified from gripping the handles of a plow. He steps out into the gray dawn, his boots crunching on the frost. There is no tractor engine to start. There is only a mule, stubborn and ornery, and a plow made of iron and oak. As Elias drives the blade into the earth, the physics of 1850 take over. Every root, every rock the plow strikes sends a violent shock wave up the wooden handles, exploding into his shoulders and elbows. He isn't just walking. He is wrestling the planet for 12 hours straight. He walks 15 miles a day behind that mule, his boots sliding in the furrow, his hamstrings screaming. By noon, the sweat stinks his eyes, mixing with the dust to form a blinding grit. If he stops, his family doesn't eat next winter. It is that simple. The cortisol levels in his blood are permanently elevated, driven by the terror of a failed harvest. But do not make the mistake of thinking the domestic sphere is any softer. Let's look at his wife, Sarah. Monday is laundry day. In your mind, that means sorting clothes. For Sarah, it means industrial-grade physical trauma. She has to haul water from the creek to wooden buckets at a time, each weighing 40 pounds. She makes 10 trips, 400 pounds of water carried over uneven ground before breakfast. She chops the wood to feed the fire under a massive copper kettle. The water boils, filling the small cabin with suffocating steam. She plunges her hands into the scalding water, scrubbing wool and linen against the zinc washboard. The ridges of the metal shred the skin on her knuckles. The lye soap, harsh and caustic, eats away at her cuticles until they bleed. This isn't a chore. It is an endurance sport. By the time the sun sets, Her arms are trembling so violently she can barely hold a spoon. Now, shift your focus to the cities, to the brick canyons of Lowell, Massachusetts. Here, the labor isn't about muscle. It's about speed and the terrifying proximity to death. Enter the textile mill. The first thing that hits you is the noise. It is a deafening, rhythmic clatter of 1,000 power looms, slamming back and forth, reaching decibels that rupture eardrums. You can't hear a scream in here. Look closer at the workers. They aren't burly men. They are children. A 10-year-old girl named Mary stands barefoot on the oily wooden floor. She is a doffer. Her job is to change the bobbins on the spinning frames. The machine doesn't stop. She has to time her movements perfectly, reaching her small hand into the blur of whirry gears and snapping belts to swap the spool. The air is thick with lint, microscopic cotton fibers that float like snow. Mary breathes this in for 14 hours a day. It coats her lungs, turning them stiff and white, slowly suffocating her from the inside out. But the immediate danger is sharper. If her dress catches on a gear, or if her attention wanders for a fraction of a second due to exhaustion, the machine will not hesitate. It will pull her in. There is no emergency stop button. There is no OSHA inspector. Every worker in the room knows someone who lost a finger, an arm, or a scalp to the hungry mouth of the loom. The tension in the room is palpable. It is a collective holding of breath, a desperate hope to survive the shift with all limbs intact. After 14 hours of this adrenaline-fueled grind, the whistle blows. The body is depleted. It screams for caloric density. You head home, expecting a meal that rewards your survival. What you get is a plate of gray, glistening slime. The American diet of 1850 is a horror story of preservation. Refrigeration is a fantasy. Fresh meat is a ticking time bomb of bacteria. Unless you killed it today, you don't trust it. So you eat salt pork. Imagine a slab of pork belly cured in a barrel of brine for 6 months until it is hard as a rock. To make it edible, it's boiled to leach out the salt, leaving it gray and rubbery. Then fried in lard. Grease is the primary food group. You dip your cornbread in the rendered fat. You eat beans swimming in it. The texture coats your mouth, a heavy, oily film that is hard to swallow but necessary for fuel. Vegetables are viewed with suspicion. The prevailing medical wisdom suggests that raw fruits and vegetables cause cholera, so the green beans and cabbages are boiled for hours until they are a flavorless brown mush, stripped of every vitamin. As winter deepens, the root cellar becomes your lifeline. But by February, the potatoes are shriveled and sprouting eyes. The apples are soft and mealy. You enter these 6 weeks of want. Your gums begin to bleed when you brush them with your finger. Your joints ache with a new, dull throbbing. You are lethargic, depressed, and irritable. You don't know it, but you are suffering from subclinical scurvy. Your body is literally breaking down from a lack of vitamin C. To cope with the pain, the exhaustion, and the monotony, and it doesn't use aspirin. It uses alcohol. The United States in 1850 is a nation of high-functioning alcoholics. Water is dangerous often. A brown soup of city runoff so. You drink hard cider with breakfast. You take a dram of whiskey about 4 ounces at 11 a.m. to power through the plowing. You have ale with dinner and a nightcap to sleep. The average American drinks nearly triple the alcohol we consume today. But this isn't recreational drinking. This is anesthetic. You drink to numb the screaming muscles in your back. You drink to forget the smell of the pig filth in the street. You drink to blur the edges of a hard, dark reality. But eventually, the whiskey stops working. The cough from the cotton dust gets deeper. The cut on the hand from the washboard starts to throb with the heat that radiates up the arm. The body, pushed too far, begins to fail. And this is where the true nightmare begins. Because in 1850, when you can no longer work, you call the doctor. And that is when you should be truly afraid. The man standing beside your bed is wearing a black frock coat, stiff with dried blood and pus from the 3 patients he treated before you. He is the most dangerous person in the room. In 1850, the germ theory does not exist. This doctor has just performed an autopsy on a cadaver and, without washing his hands, is now reaching out to touch your open wound. He doesn't see the microscopic death on his fingertips. He sees humors that need balancing. If you have a fever, he doesn't give you antibiotics. He assumes you have too much blood. He pulls out a lanceta, small, double-edged bladon, slices into the vein in your arm. You watch your own vitality drain into a porcelain bowl, feeling colder and weaker with every pulse. If that fails, he reaches for the jar of leeches. He places the slimy, undulating parasites on your skin, watching them bloat with your blood. But the chemical warfare is worse. To purge the sickness, he feeds you calomel mercury chloride. You swallow the metallic powder. Within hours, your mouth tastes like old pennies. You begin to salivate uncontrollably, gallons of fluid pouring from your mouth. The doctor nods. He thinks the poison is leaving you. In reality, the heavy metal is destroying your nervous system. Your gums turn gray and spongy. Your teeth loosen in their sockets. You are being poisoned to health. Now, imagine the worst-case scenario. A farming accident. A crushed leg. You are laid out on your own kitchen table. The surgeon approaches. Anesthesia theories, a brand new invention. Suspicious and often unavailable in the rural country. Your anesthesia is a leather strap to bite on and a pint of raw whiskey burn in your throat. For men, hold you down, one on each limb. The surgeon's skill is measured solely by speed. He picks up the knife. The blade slices through skin and muscle in seconds. You scream, but the sound is swallowed by the panic in the room. Then he picks up the bone saw. The sound is the stuff of night meyuza, wet, rhythmic rasping of steel against your femur. The vibration travels up your skeleton, rattling your teeth. It has to be done in under 2 minutes, or the shock will kill you. If you survive the table, you face surgical fever. The wound, dressed with dirty bandages, festers. In 1850, a broken leg is often just a slow-motion execution. This shadow of death hangs heaviest over the cradle. Look at the family Bible on the mantle. It records the births and deaths. You see the name William, born 1846, died 1848. Sarah, born 1849, died 1849. 1 in 4 children will not see their 5th birthday. The graveyard at the edge of town is not a place you visit once a year. It is a constantly expanding part of your community. Mothers endure the physical agony of childbirth without pain relief, knowing there is a 25% chance the child won't survive the winter. The psychological callus this forms is thick. Parents in 1850 possess a stoicism that we would label as coldness. It isn't coldness, it is armor. They bury a child on Tuesday and are back in the cornfield on Wednesday. They have to be. If they grieve too long, the harvest rots and the rest of the children starve. Grief is a luxury they cannot afford. Step back from the grave and look at the nation itself. The very ground is trembling. It is 1850, and the United States is a powder keg waiting for a match. If you are an African American, the hardship described so far is a distant dream. The reality is a living hell. In the South, human beings are capital. their bodies mortgaged and sold. The fear isn't just hunger, it is separation. The auction block looms over every family dinner, and in this specific year, the nightmare expands. The Fugitive Slave Act passes. Suddenly, the North is no longer a sanctuary. Professional slave catchers, men with guns and shackles, roam the streets of Boston and Philadelphia. Every knock at the door could be the end of freedom. The entire nation is a hunting ground. Out west, the mirage of the gold rush is shattering. Thousands of men leave the East, abandoning families for the promise of California. They don't find nuggets the size of hen's eggs. They find hell's half-acre. San Francisco is a violent, lawless mud pit where a dozen eggs costs the equivalent of $30, and disputes are settled with men die not from adventure, but from dysentery, in canvas tents, shivering in their own filth, thousands of miles from home. As the sun finally sets on this brutal landscape, the world transforms again. We have forgotten what true darkness looks like. When the sun drops in 1850, the world doesn't dim. It vanishes. You sit by the hearth. The firelight casts long, dancing shadows against the log walls. This is the only light you have. The corners of the room are swallowed by an absolute, impenetrable blackness. The silence is total. There is no hum of a refrigerator, no distant traffic, just the wind and the crackle of wood. This darkness breeds a specific kind of psychology. It is the birthplace of superstition. When you look out the window, you don't see trees. You see shapeless monsters. But this firelight is also the forge of culture. This is where the dopamine finally trickles in. The family gathers tight. There is no distraction, no screens, only the voice. The grandfather tells a story. It's the same story he told last week, but the brain craves the pattern. It is a moment of pure, synchronized connection, neurobiological coupling in its rawest form. For an hour, the hunger, the sore muscles, and the fear of the grave recede. You are safe in the circle of light. This oral tradition is the glue holding the sanity of the pioneer together. So, how do we judge them? The men and women of 1850. It is easy to look at their unwashed faces and their brutal medical practices with pity. We see them as miserable wretches living in squalor. But that is a mistake. Pity implies weakness. These people were not weak. They were forged from iron. They endured pain that would shatter a modern mind. They walked through valleys of death that we only see in movies. And they did it without a safety net. They built the railroads, cleared the forests, and raised the cities with bare hands and broken backs. They found a way to laugh while standing knee-deep in mud. They found a way to love while surrounded by loss. They were not merely surviving the nightmare. They were conquering it inch by bloody inch. The next time you turn on the tap and clear hot water flows out instantly, or the next time you flip a switch and banish the darkness with a flood of electric light, pause. Let your brain simulate the cold, the dark, and the smell of the old world for just a second. Feel the ghost of that phantom limb. And remember the millions of ordinary, forgotten giants who lived through the hell of 1850 so that you could live in the comfort of today. This isn't just history. It is the scar tissue of the nation. Welcome to the real old America.